And speaking of young players or just players when they first came into the league, did you see how George Karl and Carmelo Anthony, that kind of beef between the two is sort of
Yeah.
ending. George Karl actually letting it be known, like, he's kind of done with the whole Melo saga. But
No.
you know why they have beef, right?
Yeah, from their playing careers, I think George Carl, Hall of Fame, my bad, Hall of Fame coach. Obviously he's achieved things with the Suns, with the Nuggets, a lot of these teams. But I think, dude, he's an asshole. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it seems like everyone who's ever played with under him never liked him personally. It's a George Karl problem, to be honest with you, bro.
This is what it is. George Karl, he's one of these coaches that coached in the league at a time where the hierarchy was the coach, then the
Yeah,
players. But then when LeBron came into the league, LeBron, Melo, Wade, there was like a switch where the league started giving the keys to these guys off rip without them even doing anything, without them
yeah,
even fighting the vets, the current vets on the team. Like the NBA never did that before. You can even look at Kobe when the Lakers got him. They had Eddie
yeah.
Jones start in front of
Ben
him.
Axel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they had other players. Like if you were a young star coming into the league, you still had to battle through a hierarchy to get your
yeah. Unless
respect.
you were like
Wait, hold on. Like
unless you were a generational star.
everyone knew this player was the future of the team, but he
Yeah.
still had to go through his OGs on the team. But
I
now
mean,
it's almost like off rip. After LeBron got drafted, they started giving the keys off rip to these guys because LeBron was the first person
yeah,
who really 18, fresh out of high school. Now he's leading a bunch of NBA veterans that been in the league for 5-6 years plus.
yeah,
You've never really seen it like that. Everyone know like this is a young rookie. We're schooling him, in his first
yeah.
year.
Get
The-
our donuts, whatever.
yeah, but when LeBron came into the league, no, the franchise was like, now you're telling everybody what to do. They gave him the keys off rip. Same thing for Melo. And I think that's the transition that George Karl got caught up in. He thought that he still had the old hierarchy of,
Yeah,
because if you look at George Karl, he's very successful. He had Gary Payton under him. The Sonics kept winning, 55 games plus in the mid 90s.
yeah.
And,
Finals appearances.
exactly. Over 65 game win seasons in the West. You know what I'm saying? Like there was a hierarchy. Gary Payton had to talk to George Karl, then he talked to the rest of the team. Like it was that chain of command. But when Melo got drafted, it was like the franchise gave Melo more power than George Karl. And I think that's where they clashed. That's where they clashed.
Yeah,
And that's why Phil Jackson, in a way, when he went to the Knicks, he really had that same clash with Melo, as you've seen. Melo had more power than him, low key, but he was the president of basketball operations.
so no. Also, Phil had those clashes with Kobe. You remember in the mid 2000s, Phil and Kobe had that clash over Shaq being traded, where Phil said, "Yo, I'm leaving."
Exactly. But
Yeah,
but that shows you right there. There was a power dynamic that shifted. But at the end of the day,
yeah,
Kobe put in years of work. Kobe was already
yeah,
proven. You know what I'm saying? Of course, they're gonna give him the power. But I'm talking about
yeah,
a person that just came into the league the same way LaMelo comes into the league, but all of a sudden, over Miles Bridges and everyone else, then they're making him the leader off rip. He didn't even play one official game yet, but he's the
yeah,
leader. That's what I'm saying. That part. The NBA used to never
yeah.
be like that. They would
No,
say
the
they
league
would
is
say they would say this young player is the nicest guy on the team, but he's not the leader off rip. He just got here. But
yeah,
when LeBron came through that class, I believe in '03, that's when the league started shifting. No, oh yeah, he's 19, 18, he's the leader of the team. Even though some of these guys are in the mid 20s, they have years proven into the league. They've averaged 20 points per game, but this kid who never put on a jersey yet is the leader. Like that's the
yeah.
transition I'm talking about. Like that shit is
Bro,
different.
the when
And it's
when you're
normalized.
born,
And it's normalized at the same time right now.
one
We're,
100%, bro. And I think that's all sports. You're seeing in the NFL and you're seeing it at the NBA level, where a lot of these organizations realize what their moneymaker is. So why not keep your moneymaker happy? Like, oh, if the moneymaker is pissed at a coach, you know what? Fire him and get him someone that can maybe fit his style.
But again, that's different, right? That's eventually when the moneymaker plays games, people see he could play. I'm talking about
Yeah.
off rip. The guy gets drafted and he's the leader, like Scoot Henderson. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
when he came into the gym or whatever, they kind of assumed he was the guy. It's
Yeah,
like that
100%.
natural assumption, like he's the guy of the team, Scoot Henderson and the Blazers. You know what I'm saying? But like it used to never
Yeah.
be like that. They would say, "Oh,
No.
he's potentially could be the nicest player on the team, but he's not the leader of the team."
No, the leader of the team was like that veteran who was the leading scorer of the previous season, even if they sucked the whole year.
Hmm. But in that transition, George Karl, it was interesting because Melo kind of spoke on the dynamic. I'm gonna let you hear it. Melo kind of spoke on the dynamic that played
Yeah.
out with him and George Karl of why they originally had beef.
The minute that I knew we wasn't gonna work out, or we was gonna have issues, the first day he got the job. He got the job a couple days before we played Milwaukee Bucks. So the whole thing was, I'm not coaching no game. My first game I wanted to be against Milwaukee Bucks. Cool, go back home. They fucked you over there. I know the business. I know the game at the, and I really don't know the game when he came to the team. I'm 21 now. All I know, I got a big name coach coming. George Karl, Coach Milwaukee, Coach Seattle, Gary Payton. You know what I mean? All of that. We get to Milwaukee after shoot around, call me to his room and tell me, hey man, like I think you overrated. Like you have a lot of work.
Yo, that's crazy. First sentence?
Listen.
No,
No, he started that narrative though, like the defensive narrative. But I'm gonna get to that point. The first shoot around, he come to me and say like, look, man, I think you overrated. We have a lot of work to do. I know I ain't, you know what I mean? I know I got a lot of work. I got a long way to go in this league. But my nigga,
You just got here.
you just got here. Like you ain't asking no questions of like, who's who, what's what, what's going on, what's the vibe? Individual meetings with every player to introduce yourself. You ain't do none of that yet. You called me. Told me I was overrated. Looked at him. All right. So yeah, you remind me of, I see your role on this team. You're more like Detlef Schrempf.
Now, yo, now I know that sounds crazy, right? That
Bro, he
sounds
took the
crazy.
Shit out of him, bro.
Yo, but that sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
But in a way, yo, he wasn't lying. He wasn't lying though. On a team that's competing for a championship, right? And I think this is where there's a misunderstanding. George Karl really meant on a team that's competing for a championship. Melo is in that role. A guy that's the third option, averaging almost 20 points per game. But that's the truth. If Melo went to the Miami Heat with Dwayne Wade and LeBron, he would have been the third option.
Well, 100%. Even if he went to Chicago with Derrick Rose and those guys, he
Yeah.
probably would have been the third option.
Yeah, he would have been in Detlef Schrempf's role, the
Yeah.
shooter, the third option. Yo, the
Yeah.
Schrempf was he wasn't a bum. He averaged
Detlef Schrempf was
coming
nice.
off the bench. He averaged 19 points in the hand check era, and his team won more than 60, 55 games plus for like 5 years in a row.
Dude, he was one of the greatest six men of all time.
Yeah. So, in a way, I see where George Karl, he should have never told Melo he's overrated. He should have told Melo, if you want to get to a certain level, what you're doing right now doesn't translate to that level. That's the real truth about Melo. What he did with the scoring, the lack of defensive, tenacity, or just kind of paying attention to the small details, especially on rotational defenses. Melo's horrible. But in that type of framework, Melo's game is overrated. You can't go deep into the playoffs being an average shooter, an average volume shooter, playing barely any defense, and you think that's going to translate with you getting into the finals.
Well,
That
not
is
only that, bro.
overrated. That in that framework, Melo's game is overrated. And that's where some of the Melo fans sometimes they don't get it. Melo is nice for the regular season, drop 30 points a game, whatever. But when you want to get to a certain tier consistently, yeah, his game ain't really gonna translate like that unless certain adjustments are made. You know, the quality of his shots, the defense.
You also have to look at it like this. Carmelo isn't a guy who can create for others throughout his career. When you have a guy who can just get his own, there's a problem right there, bro. Because you need in order to be a truly offensive player, you need to be able to create for other players.
Mm-hmm.
Where teams can just lapse on Melo because they know like Melo won't be able to make that second pass, which is needed. So that is why, like, anytime Melo has had success in his career, it's always with the guy who can be a predominant playmaker on the team. You look at the Nuggets when they won to the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, with Chauncey Billups.
Chauncey Billups was able to pick up the slack of setting guys up and getting them to be better.
Yeah, that's why it didn't work out with Allen Iverson and Melo. It was always an early exit.
And then what was the squad when they went to the Eastern Conference with the Knicks? Ooh, I forgot. Was it Jason Kidd who was the starting point guard?
Jason Kidd. Yeah, Jason Kidd was there. And they had Rasheed Wallace. They had more veterans there to mold that team.
Yeah. And Jason Kidd was like at the last 1 or 2 years of his career. So that is what it is with Carmelo. It's always like playing off of someone. And I think one thing that always hurt Melo is him not realizing that. Because you remember that famous press conference where he's laughing when one of the Thunder media guys was like, Melo, what's the idea of you coming off the bench? And he's like, bench.
and right there, laughing. Yeah, right there, when he was in OKC, that little press conference was exactly what George Karl was talking about. You see how he said you're in the Detlef Schrempf role? He wasn't lying. That is the role in OKC. Paul George, Westbrook being the first, second options, and then you're in the third role. That is the Schrempf role on a team that's contending year in, year out at the top of the conference, making deep playoff runs. Yeah, he was not lying. And it's crazy to see Melo today, even still. I don't think he gets it still. He doesn't get it.
And I think, like, because I watched a couple of clips of his podcast. Bro, I can't lie. That one dude, I think DC Zamiro, one of those members, he glazes him hard, bro.
Yeah, but they're not basketball people.
Yeah,
they're not basketball people.
Sometimes it's like, man, relax.
Yeah, and again, because they look at the averages per game, and a perfect example of it is CJ McCollum in Portland when he was there. You know, he was an all-star. He averaged like over 20 a game, but when you put him on the proper team that's trying to compete, he's in that third role. He might be even coming off the bench. Yeah.
Remember, there was a famous podcast. This is when Kevin Durant, maybe his first or second year in the Thunder, and he joined CJ McCollum's podcast, and he's looking at CJ McCollum.
Exactly, because Durant knows who he really is.
Team. And I remember everyone on Twitter got pissed, like, "Oh, who the hell is Kevin Durant to say this?"
Kevin Durant was not lying. He was not lying.
Yeah, I'm not like, yeah, he's a champion. Like, come on, Brett, come on. Like,
there's levels. Yeah, there's levels. There's levels. And that's the thing. A lot of the fan base, you know, throughout the NBA, they mistake the regular season just a guy averaging a certain amount of points and his team being a fifth seed or a play-in team. They mistake that for, yo, we're about to make a deep run. We got a chance to win. We could compete with the best player. No, you can't. No, you can't. The best NBA teams got over 5 to 6 guys who are in sync defensively. Your star player is not going to out one-on-one all those guys. Bro, this is not happening.
Teams go out of their way to sign players that can just play, like, I don't know, a series of just guarding one player if they know they're going to be that much of a problem.
Yeah, it's just, you know, once again, George Karl, he was a coach in that in-between phase of where the coach had all the power and the hierarchy changed, where the superstar player had more power than the coach. And at the same time, he also comes from an era where coaches told their players certain things to motivate them. Like Phil Jackson did that with Kobe. Oh, Kobe ain't got no post up. Then we seen Kobe come in one year. He was posting up throughout the first 2 months of the year. Like coaches used to say shit to motivate their players, but now, you know, especially with Melo and LeBron's generation, that was the first era of players to kind of push back against the criticism.
Yeah,
well, they pushed. It was weird. Go ahead.
Phil used to go on media and blast these guys all the time.
But he used to do that for motivation.
Yeah.
Like
He used to brag.
that used to be the reaction. The players be like, "Word, I ain't got that." Then they would show the
Yeah.
fans the next season during the games that they worked on it.
Yeah.
But now the players don't even go to work on it. They're just like, "Yo, he blasted me. Yo, trade me from here."
Fuck him, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember it was. You remember, like, bro, it's been like that. I think with George Karl, the problem has been he's a very stubborn guy. The way he could have been about it is maybe massage Melo's ego, like, oh, Melo, you'd be better in this role, Melo, if you improve on this. But I feel like calling him overrated and kind of coming in hostile is what probably ruined the whole
Yeah,
thing.
but he did that
Now,
in
I'm not saying-
private. But he did that in private, and
Yeah.
also, I think George Karl was under the assumption that he had all the power, because that's what he was
Yeah.
used to. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm the commander in chief here. Like,
Yeah.
I'm motivating you like a sergeant. But the
It's
thing is,
martial
Melo.
law.
The thing is, the new generation that came in, they didn't interpret it that way.
No.
They didn't
I mean,
interpret
bro,
it that way.
you remember that one time in the media where Stan Van Gundy's talking and you kind of see him, he's all nervous and he's taking shots at Dwight. And you see Dwight come in and put his arms around him and kind of show the power dynamic within
Mhm.
that franchise.
Yep, that's part of that transition.
Yeah.
Jerry Salone, you're right, and I could compare that situation to Jerry Salone and Darren Williams in Utah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, dude, I mean, Jerry Salone, one of the greatest coaches of all time, and brought with one franchise.
Yeah,
You know
he
what
ended
I
up
mean?
leaving the league because of Darren Williams.
Yeah.
But again,
And after that,
the NBA was in that transition where the coaches were like, "Oh shit, I don't have the say so no more," and then it's like they're slowly seeing that power dynamic chip away every year, and the young 19-year-old that just came to the franchise has all the power off rip.
100%, bro. And like, what's it called? And we saw what happened. Like, with sometimes like the coaches are wrong. Like, I'm not saying like coach is always right, but there's some instances where we see Jerry Salone and Darren Williams. Let's be honest. After Utah, what exactly did we see from Darren Williams? Like after his run with Utah, nothing. Like Brooklyn, he underachieved to the point where Paul Pierce even critically said, "Yo, Darren Williams wasn't ready for Brooklyn. He isn't ready for New York media." And mind you, he's in the Ugly Sister franchise. He's not even in Madison Square Garden. So it's like, you look at it in retrospect, is maybe some of these coaches are right. Where I think I can give criticisms to George Karl and maybe how he went about like being a coach, because I feel like he had the same issue when he went to Sacramento. I feel like guys like Rudy Gay didn't like him, and DeMarcus Cousins obviously didn't like him.
Kenyon
All these
Martin.
guys take shots. Kenyon Martin, they all take shots at him. Where you don't see that with Gary Payton and these guys. They don't take shots at Karl a lot, or I haven't seen any. Maybe there is clips and I'm ignorant to them.
Yeah,
But I
again,
haven't seen any of
it's almost like that college coach. What's his name? The one that used to choke out the players, Bobby Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could see the power dynamic. The coach had all the power back then, but there was a transition that started happening after LeBron came in. And a coach like that mindset that he has, he can, even though he's probably one of the most winning coaches of all time in college, he can't transition to this new era. He couldn't be a coach. He couldn't, and that's why right now you don't see a lot of the coaches from that era, but Popovich.
Yeah,
like even Popovich adapted.
transition.
Even Popovich,
Yeah.
I think he adapts better than most of the coaches.
But I gotta give credit to like, you see Nick Nurse. He's probably the only one I've seen that does like take subliminal shots at press media. I remember one time he criticized Siakam in the media, and I remember the huge pushback was against Nick Nurse. Where back then it was normalized for a coach to be like, yeah, he's a bum, our franchise player, he's ass. Like it was normal.
Yeah, Phil Jackson used to do it a lot to even Jordan. That's crazy.
Yeah.
He used to do that to Jordan, and he did that to Kobe. But yet, everybody
Shaq.
nowadays, they're not even on that level. Yeah, Shaq too. They're not even on that level. And when their coach does it to them, it's like a backlash. This shit is weird.
Like bro, like Pascal Siakam, like Shaq. When Shaq got criticized for his weight, Kobe got criticized for his selfishness. Same with Michael. But a guy like Pascal Siakam is who we're coddling. Is mind blowing to me.
Yeah. That's kind of it shows you the league how much the The balance of power has shifted, and it's a different generation. It's a completely
I think
different generation.
society-wise, this is how we are at this point, bro. I think it just reflects how modern society is.
Yeah, it's not a it has less of a backbone right now, I would say.